Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another Ruby Rogues podcast. Now, real quick, we are also doing a live stream. So if you're picking this up on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, we went live. So anyway, this week we're going to be talking about Hotwire. But before we get started, let me introduce our panel. We have Dave Kimura.
Hey, everyone.
We also have Valentino Stoll.
Hey, now.
I'm Charles Max Wood from Top End Devs. Got big stuff coming up this month. We also have a special guest this week, and that is Yaroslav Shmarov. I think I got close on your name.
Yeah, that was quite good. Yaroslav Shmarov. Nice to meet you
That's
guys.
That's what I said. Sorry. Anyway, do you want to introduce yourself real quick? I mean, we met at Rails World. I can point that out, but yeah.
So my name is Yaroslav Shmarov. I'm from Ukraine. I've been working with Ruby on Rails for around 8 years now, and I created a few Ruby on Rails courses on Udemy, Gumroad, and also I have a YouTube channel named Super Rails where I release a lot of different content about how to do different stuff with Ruby on Rails and a lot of stuff with Hotwire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were speaking at Rails World about Hotwire and some exciting stuff that was announced there. But yeah, do you want to just jump in and I think we've talked about stimulus in some parts of Hotwire, but do you want to just talk about kind of in general what Hotwire is for people who aren't familiar with it? And then we'll dive in and talk about why to use it and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so Hotwire is basically a server-side rendering technology. And in a way, it's the child of JS.erb, I would say, and TurboLinks. So, TurboLinks have turned into TurboDrive. JS.erb has been depreciated and kind of, I would say, renamed into TurboStreams. And there are some new stuff like Strata that I haven't tried yet.
Mm-hmm.
And TurboFrames, that is something completely new, nothing that I have seen before. And Stimulus is in a way what we would be using instead of jQuery in our era, in our times.
Right.
So it's the shortest introduction by familiarities that I can make.
Yeah, I know we've talked in the past about different aspects of Hotwire. Is everybody here using the whole stack, or are you just using different pieces of it?
I'm all in. I love
I'm all over the place.
Right.
I use pieces of it and full for some things.
Okay. I'm kind of halfway in. I've been playing with Stimulus. I haven't quite figured out Turbo yet. I mean, I pull in Turbo links on my apps and it, does magic to make it better. But for the rest of it, I haven't picked up all the other pieces. I'm looking forward to it though. So where do you guys want to start with talking about Stimulus or Turbo or Hotwired? I think now that I've asked the question, I think I'm going to answer it. Why do people want to use it? I mean, we've got amazing tools out there like React and Angular and Vue and Svelte and whatever. So why Hotwired?
Because it's not Angular, React, Vue, Svelte.
So what's the advantage? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, to me, it's a tool that is easy to learn, and it is kind of well integrated into the Rails framework. So, the barrier of entry, the barrier of learning is kind of lowered if you are a Rails developer, and the general amount of knowledge that you need to have is lower. So React is a giant framework where you can spend a long time learning it, whereas Hotwire is really simple and it's just a few tools that have a few use cases, and you can do maybe 80% of what you would be doing normally with React. But usually this 80% will be more than enough for 90% of the applications.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I found about bringing in external dependencies, let's say you do bring in React into a project, it's not going to be a first class citizen in what you were doing, but you just need some highly interactive components. So you bring in React, you build in those components, and you move on. Well, as time goes on, are you going to spend the effort to keep those external dependencies updated? React is one of those really large libraries that could introduce security concerns into
Mhm.
your application if you're not careful and if you're not keeping it updated. So, are you going to have efforts to maintain that over the years, even though it's not a primary class within your application? Or are you going to use something that's shipped by Rails, compatible with Rails by default? I mean, very little configuration or things you have to do otherwise. And you're going to keep that updated because you are heavily invested in it within your application.
Yeah, one other thing that I'm just gonna drop in here with is that, and I know the React people are gonna be like, "Well, you can do this with JSX," right? Where I like just writing my HTML and then saying, "Okay, this is the behavior I need around it," right? And yeah, you get some of that with JSX, but, um, yeah, Rails renders the HTML just fine. I don't have to go and reinvent some back end server side rendering for it because Rails does that. Right? And so then I can just drop the what I need on top of it. And that's really what I like about the approach in Hotwired is that I can, I pull in stimulus and I get the interactivity that I want. I can pull in some other library and get whatever else that I want. I can pull in turbo and I can reload different parts of the page in different ways. And I don't have to go and worry about what's it doing on the back end, what's it doing on the front end. And if you're paying attention to the React community right now, they're having a ton of heartburn over React server components. And the React server components are server side rendered. They have server side only functionality. And so there's a breaking change almost depending on how you approach them because you have to now account for them if you're going to use them at all. And with Rails or, with HTML and then Hotwired, you just render your page and then you tell it what it cares about. And so, um, yeah, Dave, you're talking about the issues. These are issues that they're dealing with right at the moment. So,
Yeah. And interacting with other React components, if you've had to build something very in depth, take a shopping cart where there are so many different components on a single page. They're all kind of related to each other. The number of items in the cart, your totals, the prices for the quantities, all of that stuff, trying to pass the state around is really annoying in React. And it's
oh
actually
yeah.
not too bad in Rails. There you have a lot of different approaches. With just using Turbo alone and stimulus. Or you could get real fancy and use the stimulus outlets that is now in stimulus too, which is like super awesome. I've had to use that a handful of times, whereas a year ago I was like, maybe we would have to bring React in for this kind of thing.
Well, I have the impression that React and like these front-end frameworks became so dominant because in many cases you needed to have a mobile app, so you would still need to like be creating the API endpoints. So why not just like have Rails for the API and like React for the web and for like mobile. And now I think that with like Turbo Native, with Strata, the need to ever have React will be lower because like you can do mobile apps with Rails and Hotwire. So and one less
Yeah.
reason to think of having React, and also like if you're just starting a hobby project, I think it's much easier to do it with like Rails and Hotwire. Just the development speed will be faster than like if you start building out API endpoints, deciding to use like REST API or GraphQL, most likely GraphQL,
Mhm.
and building like the React frontend. It'll just be fast if you do a small hobby project, like indie project, whatever, with
Mhm.
Rails and Hotwire.
I have so much to say to that. So on the Turbo Native and Strata stuff, we're having Joe Mazzolotti come on next week, and he's going to be talking to us about that stuff. And he basically turns people's Rails apps into mobile apps, which is cool stuff. So we'll get into that. So stay tuned. As far as the rest of it goes, I'm creating an API, and so I may as well have a front end that consumes it as well as a mobile app. Um, I've talked to a number of people that reasoned it out that way and then didn't have it come out that way in practice, right? It turned out to be a lot more work to manage two consumers of the same API than it would have been if they had just had, a web rendering component like Rails and then had the API where you needed it for the mobile app, even if you were going to do a full native mobile app that relied on an API. So I don't hear people saying that as much anymore as I used to, because it just hasn't panned out that way. The one notable exception to that I do see sometimes is um, people who have an app that's simple enough to where they can basically use the same code base for both React and React Native. Occasionally, I'll run into somebody and it's like, yeah, we had to do minor tweaks to make it work. But even then, most of the people are doing one or the other when they try and backport it to the other. It just doesn't pan out that way. And so and then you brought up GraphQL, which is like, I remember when it came out and I was like, this is really cool. And now it's turned out to be my least favorite way to build an API because it's such a giant pain in the on the back end. Like on the front end, it's so nice, right? You set up Prisma server or something and you go consume it. And it's like, this is what I want. And it's like, here you go. Right. But if you're trying to build it into Rails, oh Lord, just shoot me now. I mean, it's no fun. So yeah.
No, I
I think
mean,
a lot of the reasons are just not there to go all the way to React.
React was developed in Facebook. It's like a giant
Yeah.
company with thousands of devs, and it was
Mhm.
developed with like the separations of developer responsibilities. Like this is the front end team, this is the back end team, this is the whatever team. So, like, it's really created by a giant organization with like having lots of developers in the team in mind. So, like, I know if you're not planning to have like a few hundred developers, I would consider like starting a new project without React. And if you really need it, then do React. When you already have the resources and enough employees.
I'm really
Yeah.
torn on that point because uh, it's great. Like Rails developers are expensive. It's great if you
Thank
do it
you.
all yourself. And we can definitely do a lot more thanks to Turbo, right? Uh, but I think one of the key reasons people have that separation to begin with is just like the cost of developers. And, if they can differentiate and slice up the developer pie into their, componentized areas of specialty, right? Like even like
Mhm.
data engineers, right? Like are their own like special segment of the programmer like company, right? if if we're just creating software companies, yeah, Rails is great to get like off the ground. It's 100% true. And like really quick to iterate on. Like you're saying, like all these points are so true. And at Hotwire, I love to see because you're right. One less thing you need to do to work and iterate. Uh, but I worry like about after that, like where it leads after that. Like you know, more Rails developers doesn't necessarily like translate from it, right? Like we would still have all these front end specific roles that will be available and we'll need to transition into, right? As the app starts to get more reactive, like I like sure like Hotwire in the long term maybe can tie to every piece of the DOM and the browser APIs. but I feel like in the near term, it's more split still, right? And we're almost like creating an API on top of, you know, a stack that is, already its own specialty. That's what I worry about. And I don't know what your feelings are on that specific, like if you've noticed, like, oh, now that I'm working, exclusively with Hotwire, like, is it easy for people to come in and help out?
I mean, Hotwire is quite easy to pick up. So I've had the Rails developers join my team that have Rails experience but don't have Hotwire experience, and it really takes like I don't know, a small amount of time to pick up. So like if you have a Rails developer that joins the team and like he doesn't know React, that's a problem. But if you need him to do something in React, but if you need him to do something in Hotwire, you can just watch a few of my tutorials and and he'll be good to go.
I think it also depends on how we develop them. Because if we make super massive stimulus controllers that are thousands of lines long, that's unmaintainable from any way you cut it.
True.
So, but then also if you go too far the other way, where you have one DOM element that has 15 different stimulus controllers attached to it, then you also have a mess. So I think you have to strategically design them in a way that is maintainable. Just because it's easy to use and it's included in Rails doesn't mean that we can't screw it up as developers. So I think that's the biggest thing that we have to be cautious about.
Yeah, it's like I would say classic problem I would be thinking of when developing a stimulus controller. Should I develop it for this specific page, like, or am I going to have it reusable? Like, this will be a one feature controller, or do I have to like put the effort in making it reusable so that I can use it in other places?
Yeah, and I think that's something where I shoot myself in the foot too often. It's like, "Ooh, I could use this stimulus controller for this or that," instead of, like, in reality, no, it only ever got used in this one spot, so all the level of extraction that I did was kind of a wasted effort and added bloat to that controller, but in the event that I ever do need it, it wouldn't have been that bad to then just change it at that point, so
Yeah, I have to say the thing that I'm really liking as far as stimulus and stimulus controllers go is I've been reworking top end devs. It's very Tailwind um, front end centric, right? And I paid for Tailwind UI. That gives me the UI, unless I want to use React or Vue, in which case it gives me JavaScript too. And so I've been building in like the fade in, fade out, and all the transitions and things like that. Um, with stimulus, right? And so I just have the effect. And the nice thing is that if I want that little effect for the toggle instead of a check mark, I have a little toggle uh component, and I'm just using Vue components in Rails. Um, right. So I just put the toggle controller on it and it does the right thing every time. Or, if you click on something that drops a menu down, right? And I don't have too many places that do that, but there are a couple. And so you click it and it drops it down. And I could just pull in a transitions library uh, off of in import maps. I was going to say off of npm, but it kind of is and kind of isn't. But using import maps, right? And so then stimulus just includes it or imports it and then runs it, and it does the right thing again, right? And so I'm just setting data um, stuff on my pieces of my UI, and it does the right thing. And so it's nice to be able to just drop in these little pieces that have those little bits of functionality on those. And yeah, I could see where you have 6 data controllers on one element or something crazy like that. But for these smaller concerns, I'm really, really loving it.
Yes, I have a spider crawling on my screen here. It's
like,
kind of
It crawled across your camera.
distracting.
I
Yeah.
is that a real spider or
It's a
is
real
it like
spider.
okay.
I'm just moving them over.
Yeah, I was also wondering because, like, there are always kind of reactions that you can now add the like
Yeah.
bubbles and such stuff.
Halloween was this week. I'm just saying.
I know, that's why I was confused. I'm like,
New effect.
sorry.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah. Charles,
Yeah.
is Top End Devs a Rails app or is it just like static site
It's
generated?
Rails.
Because the cool thing about Hotwire is that you can kind of use it
Hmm.
without Rails and just with like a static site.
Right. So you could do it on Bridgetown or something.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Bridgetown has Hotwire like built in,
Mhm.
so you can do like some transitions using it.
Yeah.
There's
So,
even PHP people adopting Hotwire,
mhm.
which is kinda crazy. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
I've seen
issue
this
that I
like
had with the static site generator was it was fine for me to use and, do markdown and whatever I was going to do, but it was an issue for my non-technical folks that work for me to use it. And so if I build a form in Rails and say go nuts, they do the right thing. So anyway, but yeah, it's Rails and then I'm putting stimulus on or so far I've put stimulus on the front end. I'm still working on figuring out turbo and some of the other pieces there, but yeah.
oh, and it's also cool that there are like new developments happening all the time in Hotwire. So like there is this turbo morph that is coming, so that you will be able to write like less turbo streams and just like
Hmm.
in an even more smart way than turbo drive does it, to like replace the page, but not the parts of the page that you don't want to replace. Or like as Dave mentioned, the stimulus outlets, then like Strata that has been just released. So like the technology is really evolving, and the new features have been like pushed in all the time.
Yep.
and the view transitions is also really cool. I did an episode on that one. I wasn't sure about my implementation of it, but there was someone at Rails World. I saw the video of where it was someone from Evil Martians, Vladimir, and he
Uh-huh.
was showing off the view transitions where basically you can keep one element on the page and then shift it around based on what you're doing. So you click
Oh,
on like
nice.
an album and then it moves the little thumbnail up to the larger side. It's kind of a trickery how it does it. It takes a screenshot of before and then after the render and then kind of like morphs the image up. So, um, but it's still really cool that we can do that kind of thing fairly easily with a stimulus controller.
Mhm.
Yeah, so there is this website rubyvideo.dev that Adrian Polly has been building, where there is like lots of conference talks from all the possible years from all possible speakers, and they're also using view transitions, so you can see it as a demo there. But I'm kind of hesitant to try view transitions until it is available in places outside of Chromium-based browsers.
I think it, um, will gracefully fail, so other users wouldn't just see that transition.
Mhm.
But I think the API right now is very clunky from Google, so I'm kinda waiting for it to become a bit more user-friendly before I adopt it more widestream.
So is this a feature in Turbo?
Not really. It was a Google release or in Google Chrome or Chromium, and you can use it within a stimulus controller, just kinda tap into their
Okay.
APIs.
I
Uh,
gotcha. Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, there was some kind of PR or something to like add it as a feature into Turbo.
I hope so.
Yeah, I saw a couple of blog posts that said that people were using it with Turbo, so yeah. So do we wanna kinda break down what Turbo, Stimulus, and Strata do? Because I
Um,
think we all have used them enough to kinda get the idea, but, I'm sure there are some people out there who either haven't used them or may have used, like, Turbo Links or Turbo Drive without having really touched, turbo frames, turbo streams, turbo native, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. So Hotwire has a few components. The first component is Turbo, and itself it has a few components. It's a Turbo Drive that was previously Rails UJS plus Turbolinks. And Turbolinks and Rails UJS have been depreciated, and the features have been moved into Turbo Drive. So when you have like data Turbo Confirm or uh, yeah, what else?
Okay.
You could click on the delete button, and there would be a modal popping up
Hmm.
saying, "Are you sure you want to do it?" This was a feature in Rails UJS. Then it was moved into Turbo Drive. Um, so Turbo Drive is like the TurboLinks thing that kind of replaces parts of the page on that should be replaced, and it kind of makes it look as if there's no full page refresh. So it's the maybe like oldest feature there was. Then the next part is Turbo Streams, and I would divide them also into two parts. So Turbo Streams broadcasts and Turbo Streams via HTTP. So the ones that are via HTTP, it's you send a request to the controller, and it responds with the format dot turbo stream, and you can basically like find a few elements on the page with like this idea, this idea, this idea, and like replace them or update them or remove them. So it's more or less the same that you would be doing previously with the js.erb format, but like better syntax. Then TurboStream's broadcasts, it's basically using action cable, using WebSockets, and all you basically send these updates to all the browsers that have this page on. So the most classic example is like a live chat. Whenever somebody types a message, he sends the message to the controller, and the controller sends it to everybody who is listening to the response. Uh, yeah. Then,
So
mhm.
hang on, I've got a couple of questions about this piece, and to be perfectly honest, I haven't really used it. So, um, a lot of times, what I wind up doing is I will put a stimulus controller in, and I'll say, "Hey, if this changes, then call this function." Right? You do that through the stimulus controller, right? And you give it a click event. I hate trying to talk about code on these shows, but you do click arrow and then write whatever controller function, and then it calls the function. And that function, in a lot of cases, what I'm doing is I'm either using the Rails UJS library, or I'm using just the fetch API. Well, usually I'm using the fetch API. But I'll go and I'll say, okay, I need to update this other part of the screen, and then I'll do that through stimulus. So with turbo streams, I wouldn't have to do that. I just set up a WebSocket and say, you know,
um,
this this is the change I need or whatever, or is that something completely different?
um, so what you're describing about using stimulus, usually I would try, if possible, not to invoke controller actions using stimulus. Uh, like there are some cases where you need to do it. For example, like
Hmm.
you have like drag and drop. So that
Right.
drag and drop happens in stimulus, and like you would be maybe using request.js to make a request with the data from like the drag event to a
Hmm.
Rails controller. But in most cases, like let's say you click uh, create post, it
Hmm.
goes to the create action. The create action says remove the element with the ID new post, and add this post to on top of the element with the ID posts.
Hmm.
So I would say there's like quite different things for different use cases.
Yeah. I think the litmus test, Chuck, is, do you need that updated record to broadcast live to everybody else? who is on that page. And
Okay.
if the answer is no, then you don't need the turbo broadcast. If the answer
Okay.
is yes, then you need to set up a long polling or simply just use the broadcast.
Okay. What about the turbo stream then? So how is that different from what we're talking about here?
Uh, Basically, with turbo streams, you have two options via HTTP. Do you want the update to be visible right away only to you, or via like WebSockets, Action Cable, broadcast, whatever you name
Mhm.
it? Do you want
Okay.
everybody to see the update?
So if I just want to see the update, then I don't send it back as a broadcast. I just send it back to the person who took the action on the stream.
Yeah, so like the controller responds with not format HTML but format TurboStream, and inside format TurboStream you would have something like find element with this ID and replace it with this partial.
Okay. So I'm still running it through a stimulus controller.
Uh,
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So if you have a form, just a normal
Uh-huh.
form that you have a post button, then you don't need to broadcast the changes back to yourself because the turbo stream, it's really kind of like the JSERB where but in this case, you have the option to do a prepend, append, replace, or remove,
Uh-huh.
and you pass in the ID element that you're wanting to manipulate.
Okay.
And then in the rendered HTML that's coming back to the browser, it's going to have a template, which a template is a HTML template, which is
Mhm.
not viewable on the screen, but then whatever ID you had selected will then replace, append, remove whatever that
Okay.
ID was. But here's a pro trick that I learned a few months ago that I absolutely love because there's been several times where I call a controller action and I actually need to update three different elements on the page, three completely separate ones.
Mhm.
And you could actually do a turbo stream respond and pass in an array of multiple turbo streams. So you can do like an append, and then also a remove, and then the JavaScript on the browser side will trigger all of those and execute them.
you mean you can have like an array of TurboStreams inside the controller?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was doing for the first year of using the tool, but in many cases, I would prefer actually having the template. So like create.turbostream.erb, and that way you are more versatile with the response. So like you can have like some kind of custom HTML, and not just like the name of partial uh, or actually have the HTML inside your controller. And actually, if you go to like the discussions in the Turbo repository, a couple of years ago, there was like the guy who first found this trick of like having how to like have the right syntax for an array of turbo streams in the
Mhm.
controller, and DHH was like discouraging that like it's not the way we intend to use it.
Yeah. Well, I agree with DHH on many things. We might disagree on this one.
Mm.
I think you're right, absolutely. If you need to do something a bit different than what you can do within the controller, but if I can keep the visibility all in the context of that controller action, and if it's not crazy long, if it's reasonable size, then I would still prefer to do it there.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So does this speed up your pages in the same ways that Turbo Links did, where it would
It's
only
faster.
re-render, yeah, it would only re-render the parts that you care about. In this case, you're kind of controlling that a little more directly. It's not doing a diff on your page, right?
Yeah, you exactly like say that this is the element that should be removed, or like this is the
Right.
partial that should be added on top of the div with this ID. So like with turbo streams, you have laser sharp control of what you
Mhm.
want to change with this response.
And
Yeah,
then
this is actually one thing I really love about the whole Turbo framework is it like basically decouples like what you want to broadcast to the page from the page. And so it's like,
mhm,
all right, the DOM is just listening. And then, as it gets stuff, it swaps things out specifically where it's listening at, right?
Yeah, and depending on how you're calling it, if you're calling it from a stimulus controller, which ideally, as Yaroslav was saying, you shouldn't do or try avoid doing, you can add a layout false to that action to prevent the entire HTML with the layouts rendering as well. And it'll save a ton of time if your layouts are pretty complicated.
But again, there are some cases where you it's impossible not to like have a response from the stimulus controller. So again, like if you're doing some kind of drag and drop in, then
Mhm.
you would need to call the controller from the
mhm.
stimulus. But it's
Yep,
like
that's one of the pieces that I've built is yeah, pulled in what is it, Draggable JS or something?
yeah, there are a few of them,
Yeah.
but usually I would like go kind of layer after layer. So first I kind of
Uh-huh.
build a feature that just works with HTML responses, like for example, table that you can search and sort. First I do it with
Mhm.
like just HTML, and like each click on like sort or search or pagination is like full page refresh. It's just like respond with format HTML. Then like next step would be to use turbo frames to replace part of the page. If this is not enough, if I need to like change the counter on the top of the page, results here and something else in another place, then turbo streams. And if I need to add some kind of like select all elements or like open selected elements in a new window, then this would be stimulus. So like stimulus would be maybe the last resort for like features that I cannot do with other tools.
I'm interested, like, what now that you've been using Stimulus like quite heavily, I imagine, right? Have you noticed like there's some things in Stimulus that uh, maybe they are done a different bit differently, but that why would you go back to any other way?
Um, I didn't understand.
Like, are there things in Stimulus that you've found it to use frequently that you can't find in other frameworks, or maybe they just work a little differently that you wouldn't do, another way anymore?
In stimulus. Um, so it's quite hard for me to compare like stimulus to other JavaScript frameworks because all my career I've tried evading JavaScript frameworks as much as possible, and like just writing either like vanilla JS or um, having no JS at all. So I really can't give a good comparison for stimulus and like stuff that is present in other frameworks.
That's fair. I did wanna leave a comment, because you were walking through quite a few, like, demonstrations. Uh, I just love your Hotwire cookbook that you have, that has all the pull requests with each different thing that, you can accomplish. It's pretty awesome, so we'll leave a link to the show notes so people can follow along.
Yeah, actually, there are like a lot of the examples inside the pull requests, but some of them are not present there. Some of them are like just in the videos that I have created, so you can also check them out because like some of them were basically taken too much time to have in a like one meaningful pull request inside the repository, but I might get to it sometime. Actually, this Hotwire cookbook, 113 stars. It's like my most starred repository so far.
That's awesome. I'll share it some more.
Yep. So,
And
oh, go ahead.
yeah, Charles. So you were saying you were using like stimulus.
Yeah.
Uh, Dave, I guess you've used like all kinds of all parts of Hotfire, like a bunch. And what about you, Valentino? What's your experience with Hotfire?
I mean, to be honest, I use it frequently just to try out a bunch of new prototype stuff. So I find it's just like very quick and easy because it's all there, right? I don't have to add any JavaScript libraries or setup or anything. Um, so that's where been my experience is just like quickly prototyping something, just like, oh, does this work? What's this look like, kind of thing.
One thing I really enjoy is that like it's a new framework that has been released just a couple of years ago, and since the moment of its release, you really don't know how you can use it. Like, what are the use cases? What would you be able to do with it? What should you try to, and what should you try not to accomplish with it? And I really felt like an explorer, trying all kinds of
Hmm.
stuff, finding new interactions, new ways to use it. Like I don't know, one of my favorite ones is like inline editing fields. Somebody just like asked me on the Twitter, "How can I do inline editing?" I thought, "Oh, that's like such a great question. Really, I should try doing it." And like I found a great way to do inline editing with turbo frames, and just perfect. And like 5 6 years ago, there was a gem best in place that you would use to accomplish this kind of behavior. And now, like just a few lines of turbo frames, and it works perfectly.
Oh, wow. I'm gonna have to check that out. So, what else are you working on related to Hotwire?
Oh, related to Hotwire. So, I mean, at work, I have to do quite some Hotwire stuff. Then I've got like the videos,
Hmm.
some blog posts, and like a whole list of topics I still want to cover, and like Hotwire use cases I kind of have. Have tried, but still need to put them into text and into video. So like basically just creating posts and creating videos about what else I can do with Hotfire. And one thing I really haven't tapped into is Strata, Turbo Native. I'll be looking forward to listening to your episode with Joe to learn more about them. But
Hmm.
I really feel that like building mobile apps is the missing piece of the puzzle for like being able to do everything with Rails.
Right. Makes sense. So, are the new things that you're working on, and I'm totally driving this transition over because I want to talk about it. Are these going to be on Super Rails?
Yeah, so I've currently got all my videos on YouTube, and in the last couple of months, I've been working on building superrails.com, where there'll be kind of the same videos as on YouTube, plus some special content that will be available
Hmm.
only there. So,
Right.
yeah, working on it.
Very cool. So, I have about a bazillion questions. I'll let these guys ask questions if they have any about Super Rails or whatever before I dive in.
Yeah, I mean, how do you come to starting something like that? Like, are you just one day, oh, like I should document my whole learning experience in video format, or like, was there some motive behind it? What
Um,
got you started with the whole thing?
So, since I started learning Ruby and Rails in 2015, I like bought a few Udemy courses. I was trying to learn some things via like blog posts, and especially with the Udemy courses, like I saw that it could be done better, but I didn't have the like skill needed. And only around 2020, I like like since I first bought my first Udemy course on Ruby, I always knew that like I want to create a better Ruby Udemy course. So in 2020, I already felt like confident enough with my skill and created the Udemy course that was named Learn 25 Gems and build a startup MVP. And the startup MVP was a Udemy clone. So basically, like you buy a course on how to build a Udemy clone on Udemy.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, approximately at the same time, I started uh, writing blog posts about like all the cool features I've recently implemented, and it's like now I just look, why didn't I do it like a few years earlier? Like there is there are so many examples that I could have added, and even now, like there are so many examples in my drafts that I just can't uh, turn into like a release state. That like the example is good enough to like be an actual blog post that doesn't suck to read. But like I started writing the blog, and I already had the Udemy course. I created a couple of more courses, and only after that, at some point of time, I decided to start a YouTube channel. And yeah, I've been doing like the YouTube channel for around 2.5 years now, and it's like very emotionally rewarding, because like I see that I'm helping people, but only emotionally. Yeah.
So how big is
Oh,
the YouTube channel now?
it's like 6,000 people or so.
Oh, nice.
Um, 6,800. Yeah, 6,800.
Very cool.
And Dave, on your YouTube channel, you've got around like 14, 15,000.
Yeah, it's something around there. I used to keep a really close eye on it. I'm like, but it was like watching wet paint dry. So I stopped looking at it because it could be very demotivate demotivating if you don't see it spike up or climb the way you want it to. So I stopped. Before I was getting every notification of a Stripe payment come in, I would get pinged on my phone and stuff, and I just turned it off because cancellations also came through there and stuff, and that could be just very demoralizing. So I just focus on creating content and focus on, just sharing that with the world.
Cool.
Mm.
Love it.
Funny, there's a very popular article on like the challenges of being a YouTube influencer and how the YouTube algorithms are made in a way that make you feel bad for not generating new content. And how they like continuously say, oh, like if you generate more content, like in the next day, then you can get X number of followers based on our right.
That's
Oh, I
interesting.
mean, looking at all the Ruby on Rails YouTube channels, the whole pool of like people that are ready to subscribe to a Ruby on Rails YouTube channel is like really limited. So I think the biggest channel has like
Mhm.
25,000 subscribers or so. But talking of YouTube and Super Rails, I really feel like there is a renaissance of like content about Ruby on Rails on YouTube. So like
Mhm.
2018, 2019, there was like hardly anybody creating any content except Dave and Chris, and now there are like so many people creating really different content. Like there is CJ Avila who is building like uh, Rails related content that is like just stuff that is interesting to him personally, and there can be like some
Mhm.
things that you would not think of, like there's Daniel that he's also like experimented with weird stuff that I wouldn't usually look into. So like lots of people trying out YouTube and trying to teach something different Ruby related, and that's really great.
Yeah. I'm really glad that there's so much content being created for Ruby. I think that helps keep it alive.
Yep.
One thing I really hate is like if you go to YouTube and you type like "is Rails dead" or "is Ruby dead," and like there are maybe 10 like thumbnails of people like oh is it dead? Should I use it?
That's really
Yeah.
funny.
Yep. So Israel's dead? No, I'm just kidding.
Have you checked the website?
Is Now I wanna see if somebody has registered israelsdead.com. If not, I
I
might
know
go buy
Chris
it.
has his Ruby Dead.
I mean, it will be alarming if that website goes down.
Oh, yeah. Somebody had. Oh, yeah. Learn Ruby on Rails with Go Rails. So Chris must own this one too.
Yeah, and Dave, you've been doing YouTube for like a decade now.
It's it's been a long time. Um, it was hard at first, getting started and stuff. Initially, the feedback that I got from people was just horrible.
Oh,
Like
really?
like the internet is just a bunch of mean people. So, I was accused, like, "Is that really your voice or just a screen narrator?" Like, or, "You sound very monotone." I'm like, "Thanks for the tips. I don't know how to change that." So, but yeah, it's been a wild ride, and it's been a sacrifice too. Trying to come up with new content every week and stuff, it gets difficult after you're several hundred episodes in,
Mhm.
and I've tried to memorize every episode that I've done so I don't overlap and stuff. It becomes kinda crazy.
Yep.
Well, I mean, you might have done an episode in 2015, and now you'd be doing the same thing differently.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
this kind of things make sense.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe you have a month where you just rehash old episodes.
There you go. These are the
Re-
top 10
revised.
episodes. Yeah.
I have an interesting one coming out next week or this weekend for a free episode. It's on, AI spam detection. So, I'm
Oh,
creating
cool.
a AI model. It's been trained on Hammer Spam. So, it's
Mhm.
a, label, spam if the text is bad, ham if it's good. And you plug it into a active job to check action text, and it'll spit back whether or not it's spam or not. So you can prevent it from even being displayed on your forums if it's been detected as spam for human review. So AI is cool.
Cool.
That's why I've been
Yeah.
doing a lot lately.
Yeah, that's actually a gem named Sphere Jar, and
Mhm.
you kind of can plug it into your Rails app, and like if there is like basically add it as a helper around the post dot body or like command dot body, and it will replace the like swear words with asterisks or something. So that's the
Yeah.
most like simple solution.
Hmm.
um, a few years ago, I was working for a company that was doing like live streaming, and like the audience could have a live chat, and people would like to swear or like find ways to swear so that swear jar is doesn't mute them. So they were looking for different ways, and they were using some kind of like a premium API service that was. Basically each message was sent to that API service, and they were returning the message with like OK status or with blurred profanity status or like completely impossible to post. But I mean, the idea with AI might be cheaper.
Yeah. It's really neat. I should turn it into a service. Be an easy service. Like, actually was running it last night, and it takes 700 megabytes of GPU RAM to do 15 millisecond response times,
Oh, wow.
or using Apple Silicon, still 700 megs of RAM for 50 millisecond response times, or CPU based for 100 milliseconds. So,
Cool.
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Talking about videos, so you actually like record one video per week, or do you like do it maybe like 5 videos in a row and then like do nothing for a month?
I do it every week. Um, I plan on when I'm not feeling good or something, 1 week or something, I might try to hurry and double up so that I can still release on a schedule, or if I'm planning holiday or something, then I'll double up, 1 week so I can still release on a schedule. But I think it's been 2016, like early 2016. I've not missed a single week. I've
Oh,
released
wow.
one episode every week.
Well, me, I usually release something just when I'm ready, or like when I feel that this topic is completely ready in my head. So I don't have like a fixed schedule. I like try to do it often enough. Like uh, sometimes it can be like 3 times a week. Sometimes it can be 3 times a month.
Mhm. Yeah. I found for me, I have to create a schedule and be consistent with it.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's too easy to start slacking off. So,
Yeah, that's a lot the same for me with the podcasts. So, but I'm working on putting up more stuff on YouTube, both in the programming space and the podcasting space. And I'm dabbling, starting to push into the political space a little bit. And so my schedule is right now, what it's going to look like is I'm going to do a month's worth of one show one day. And then the next week, that same day, I'll do 1 month's worth of the other show. And so I will be batching them, but I'm still setting aside time every week to, you know, do a regular set of content, if that makes sense.
Well, you guys have been doing it for so many years, so I should definitely take it as a lesson of consistency from you.
It I find that it makes it easier on the listener too, because then they don't have to come look and see if something new is out or, wait for a reminder to get pushed onto them, right? They just make it part of their routine. And so you know, I think we release this show on Wednesdays, so people will listen on Wednesday morning or Thursday morning on their way to work. And I've heard from a lot of people that it's just part of their routine. So anyway, I'm gonna push us toward picks. It's already 1:10, and I've got a 7-year-old who had her tonsils out on Friday. She's begging me for more food, so I got to go find her something to eat. So let's go ahead and do some picks, and then I will go downstairs and appease the ravening children. Um, Valentino, do you want to start us off with picks?
Sure. I just received a particle photon 2 in the mail, and I got an Edge ML kit, which they have like a way to basically do machine learning on the edge and
Oh,
send real
nice.
time hardware analytics and events to things using the service called Edge Impulse, which is just like absolutely mind blowing awesome. So my two picks are Edge Impulse and the new particle photon.
Awesome. If you want to drop links to those in the comments, they'll go out to YouTube and Facebook. Uh, Dave, what are your picks?
I'm gonna pick 80/20. It is, basically aluminum extrusion, and before I had, like, 8 or 9 clamps around my desk holding up audio equipment or video equipment, and I got really tired of it because every time I would, like, bump the table, it would just, like, sit there and bounce, and it was annoying. So, I got aluminum extrusion, and I built a desk truss system around the back of it, so now everything is just, like, slid in and clamped on there.
Oh, nice. Now I want to see it.
I'll
So
show
I've
you a
got a
picture.
few. Nice. I've got a few picks here. The first one is the board game pick. Um, and this week I'm picking First Rat. Now, First Rat, what it is you all are colonies of rats, so you all have different colored rats, and you're moving them up the board and collecting resources so that you can build a rocket. And you're going to take the rocket to the moon because, of course, the moon is made of cheese. And um, so yeah, so you just play the board game, and it's one of those games where you're kind of building up resources and building up ability, but you can also go and collect items to, up your score. And so you're kind of playing the game of when do I stop building my engine and start building my points so that I can win. It was a lot of fun. One thing that is a little different about this game, it plays 1 to 5 players. It's 10 ages 10 and up. Board game Geek weights it at 2.27, so it's pretty approachable for the average gamer. We played it with 3 people and with 4 people, and I think it took 45 minutes and an hour when we did that. And anyway, it was really, really fun. It's probably my favorite game that we're teaching at TimpCon this year, which is the local board game con. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to pick it. Um, and then the other thing, sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once. So I do have some stuff coming down the pipe. It'll release around Black Friday, and so you'll be able to get discounted memberships on Top End Devs as I release this stuff, or before Black Friday as I get it out there. I'm planning on charging a bit more than what the prices are going to initially be set to as I get it launched, right? Just so I can kind of shake it out, make sure that everything's going well for people who subscribe. But yeah, it's going to involve weekly meetups, coaching, uh, the uh, podcast without the ads, um, bonus content. So yeah, we're gonna have all kinds of good stuff coming out. So if you're interested in that, go check out topenddevs.com. And yeah, that's what I got this week. Yaro, what are your picks?
I'm kind of out of the loop.
Just
Uh,
anything you like, anything you've been watching on TV, or any new technology you've been playing with, or books you've been reading, or whatever.
uh, just a couple of weeks ago, I started learning to sail on a catamaran.
Oh, fun. That looks fun.
Uh, if it qualifies as a pick, like
Mhm.
sailing, yeah.
That sounds totally fun. And then if people want to connect with you online, is YouTube where you want them to go, or is there a better place for people to?
I mean, YouTube is not very communicational, so it's most like you're pushing,
Mhm.
you as a creator are pushing like content to your listeners. But if you want to actually message me and like have a conversation, LinkedIn or Twitter are great places.
All right, cool. If you want to put links to those in the comments as well, we'll make sure they wind up on the show notes and stuff.
Okay, just a moment.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up. Thanks for coming. This was fun.
Yeah,
It,
thanks for the invitation.
it was good. It was good to meet you in Amsterdam last month. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, folks. Until next
hopefully,
time,
yeah,
max out.
hopefully we will meet in like Toronto next year, I guess.
Yeah, that would be awesome. It's a little easier to get to, right, Valentino?
A little bit.
Yep.
Well, not for me. I need a
Right.
visa.
Yeah.
Ah, true. Yeah,
It's easier in
Valentino's in the
Canada, though,
Northeast
right?
somewhere. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll catch you all later.